Hey there, this is Jon Denton with another review. I'm going to be talking this time about Thumper on Nintendo Switch. Now just quickly, if you're looking for a video games channel that talks about gaming from an industry and journalistic perspective, as well as celebrating the beauty and art of video games, then please do make sure you hit that subscribe button. Okay, Thumper, Nintendo Switch. Now I've played Thumper plenty before on the PlayStation VR version, and I kind of assumed that I wouldn't ever really want to test it outside of those circumstances, just because it's such an overwhelming and engrossing experience inside PlayStation VR. But when I saw it was coming to Switch, I was intrigued, being that it is one of the most interesting things to happen to the rhythm genre in years and years and years. So if you don't know what the game is, basically you're a little metal beetle travelling down an endless track sort of into the distance, and the whole game is scored by this sort of pounding, relentless industrial soundtrack, just like clanging metal. And the developers, they actually label the game as rhythm violence, and that makes sense. It almost feels like you're fighting the levels, and indeed at parts you will fight bosses as you move through the levels. But basically you're just sort of hitting buttons that appear on the track, and then just moving the stick left or right when you slam into the corners of the track. As you progress through the levels, it keeps adding new mechanics, so there's new ideas that come into it. But basically, in terms of pure interaction, it's quite simple. In terms of difficulty, it's not, though. This is a tricky and extremely intense game. And I'm happy to say, very, very happy to say, in fact, that it translates beautifully to Switch. Certainly in terms of hardware, it runs at 720p in handheld mode and full 1080p 60 frames when docked. And compared to the PlayStation 4 version not played in VR, I can't really spot any difference. It seems like exactly the same thing. Now, obviously, in taking the VR headset off, you are losing that 3D element, and I must say I found it a little trickier to play just because it was harder to judge where things were coming, like buttons along the roads and the corners. In VR, while there's not a lot of head tracking in Thumper on VR, just having that 3D element does allow you to time things a little better. But on the flip side of that, the HD rumble in the Nintendo Switch really does add a lot to the game, and it really is amazing technology, because the rumble in the DualShock 4 isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. It does add to the experience of playing Thumper. But here you can really feel the difference between hitting the corners perfectly, between the little lines that cross the track that just feel like little pin stabs in your hand. It's quite amazing. It's especially impactful when using the Joy-Cons sort of attached to the Switch. The HD rumble in those things is extremely powerful, but unfortunately the flip side of that is you're having to use the analog stick on the Joy-Cons, which probably isn't quite up to the task of playing Thumper at its most intense. You can also use the little D-pad buttons, but again, I wouldn't say that was fast enough. So if you are using the Joy-Con analog, things do get a little trickier, I have to say. But on Pro Controller, while the HD rumble isn't quite as strong, the feeling is still there, and as a controller, it's absolutely beautiful for Thumper. It's better than the DualShock 4. It's kind of the ideal controller to play it, and it really is quite a special game. I mean, like I said, it is pounding, and it's relentless, and it's aggressive, and it can be quite overwhelming and sort of dark, and almost fills you with despair at times. I mean, there's no levity. There's no humour here. This is just sort of brutality constantly coming at you. The levels build and build and build. A level may have like 18 little sections, and they build and build and build, and little motifs will happen as you're playing through a level. You know, you'll recognise a little pattern, and then it will build upon that pattern, and it just gets more and more intense, and the beat gets more and more intense, and the sound gets more and more intense, and you get more and more immersed and sucked into it. And like I said, it really is one of the most amazing things to happen to the genre in a long time. It doesn't have the sort of complexity of the truly great rhythm games of a Guitar Hero or Beat Mania back in the day, but it feels completely different and new, but still very much sort of member of that family of games that still has the power to draw a player in, almost like no other genre. I'm a huge fan of music games, and as such, I think this is an absolutely essential game for Switch, with the caveat, if you don't like rhythm games, if this isn't a genre that you enjoy, if this isn't a genre that you're particularly interested in, then I don't know if Thumper is going to be the game to really introduce yourself to that world. But saying that, it's different enough from sort of brightly coloured Japanese style rhythm games that you might find something interesting there. But if you are into games like that, if you've enjoyed games from Res to Guitar Hero to Rock Band to Beat Mania to Samba de Amigo to whatever it might be, to Guitar Man, anything along those lines, then Thumper is absolutely essential and a fantastic version on Switch. Really strong stuff, and just another example of an amazing first 3 months to this console. We knew that we were getting Zelda Breath of the Wild, we knew that we were getting Mario Kart 8, and they were going to be two incredibly strong first-party games, and that's what's happened, but it's been backed up by some extremely strong stuff on the eShop, and this is just another great example of that. So yeah, don't miss out on Thumper. If it sounds like your cup of tea, I can almost guarantee that it is. Okay, thank you very much for watching. Like I said, my name's Jon Denton, and like I also said, if you like the idea of more reviews like this, more content like this, and a channel that celebrates the beauty and art that is video games, then make sure you subscribe. Okay, I will catch you on the next video. Peace!